Good morning, everybody. I'm Tony Lee. We are charged, in my opinion, we in the media, with getting information out to you that helps our community. You know, it's not just entertainment. If you're listening on music stations, it's not just about the music. If you're listening on news and talk, it's not just about conversation to make the phone ring. Our job really is to get information to you that's going to change the bad in our world and make it good by informing you, giving you choices, giving you options, letting you know what's going on. There's something that's been going on for a long, long time, and it's going to hurt. You know, when we talk about the subject that is on the line today, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. This is going to rip your heart out because it isn't good news. But it's news you need to have. It's something you need to know about. And the bad thing that I think about is every year we do this program again and again and again. It's still necessary, and we keep doing it because it's still necessary. So you're wondering, what am I talking about? Human trafficking. That's what we're talking about. January has been deemed Human Trafficking Month by the Kern County supervisors. And Human Trafficking Awareness Month is actually what it is. And I'm really, it's hard for me to do this kind of a show because we hear stories from people who are like our guests today that tell us of the horror and the tragedy that's going on right under our noses, right here, where we live, on the streets we live on, in the maybe in the block that you live in, maybe in the apartment complex you live in. You know, it may be somebody you know. I really hope not. But I mean, all of this is possible because it's right here where you and I live. And we're going to try to get to shed a light on it. We're going to try to give you a little information, A, that it is still going on, and B, what you can do to help. And you can do something, believe it or not. It may seem like it's an insurmountable task, but you can do something. You can call, you can text, you can send information to the authorities. When you see something, say something. That's kind of what everybody says. And I kind of like that because it makes good sense. When you see something, say something. The police are not there. Human services are not there when it's going on. And they don't know what's going on. So they can't stop it from happening because they're not there ahead of time. And that's not their fault. They don't, who knows what's going to happen, when and where it's going to happen. But if you're standing there and you see something, you live right down the street or right next door to something that you see every day that tells you that there is a woman in there. Could be a male. It doesn't have to be a woman. It could be a child. But there is somebody in there that's being held against their will and forced to do some unconscionable things, and they have no way out. They don't have the option to pick up the phone and call 911. That's your job, and you don't have to go over there and play Superman and get yourself in trouble, get yourself hurt. Just make a call and get the right authorities in on it. So anyway, here I am on my soapbox. Let me start by introducing our guests. Let's start with you, Dustin. Tell me about you.
Good morning, Tony. Dustin Contreras from the Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking. I'm a volunteer there since the inception of the coalition in 2012.
Why did it take until 2012 to get something like that going, to get the coalition up and running? I mean, human trafficking didn't start in 2012. It was going on. Did it just get to the point where people finally said, "Look, we got to do something"? What happened?
Kind of, sort of. It's not a long history, but if we're being honest, people in Kern County did not want to know about human trafficking. Yeah. Business owners did not want to believe that the prostitutes outside of their businesses bringing in all this illicit traffic were forced to do this. They just believed they were prostitutes. They were there to make money and
they're there because they want to be there. It's their choice.
Absolutely. And it wasn't it wasn't until an individual that was our founder, Phil Gaisley, an Englishman, came to America to do data for a bigger project in Colorado. And after they were well established, and doing anti-trafficking work within the nation and the state of Colorado. They sent him out here along with the support from his church, and he went around to local entities and had doors shut in his face. And one day a highway patrolman from the east area of Kern took some training about human trafficking. They just happened to connect with the right people from my colleague Carol Beecroft from the Women's Center High Desert in Ridgecrest, and they started KCAHT, and the rest is history. He started reaching out, getting funding in the faith-based community, and was able to get all the partners together and create KCAHT. So as it was when he started, it was palatable enough for the community to the way he presented it. It wasn't, trying to scare anyone, but he was telling the truth about what was going on.
Yeah.
And slowly, with the evolution, bringing the right subject matter experts into KCAHT, as well as survivors of human trafficking, and getting their input, he was able to navigate and create what we have today.
I should say that it was not an indictment on my part when I kind of suggested, why did it take us so long to get there? Because I know, but I wanted you to say it, and you did it wonderfully, that a lot of times we just don't want to recognize that these things are happening right here, and we want to blame the people that are in fact victims, and I guess maybe that's a normal thing to do. Angela, let me first of all kind of bring you in and introduce you. And I didn't mean to leave you out by any means,
No
but
worries.
I just kind of wanted to let Dustin kind of get us going. Tell me about you.
Hi, I am Dr. Angela Look. I am a supervisor at Child Protective Services at the Department of Human Services. And since 2018, I've supervised a specialized unit that deals only with exploited and trafficked youth here in Kern County. And what I wanted to add, Dustin gave such a great history about KCAHT. It's not just here in Kern County.
Right.
This issue hasn't been well recognized across our country up until the last decade or 20 years.
Yeah, we're not the only ones that have kind of
No,
been closing
absolutely
a blind
not.
eye to it.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. But here, I guess to me is really important because, I kind of care, but I don't really care what goes on in New York or Chicago because I don't live there. Or L.A., which is even closer. And a lot of us who came to Kern County, and I'm one of those guys. I wasn't born here, I wasn't raised here, but I came here from somewhere else, and I found a gold mine. This is what God's country ought to be. And so I'm still here. 33 years later, I'm still here, and don't plan on leaving. But it's here. Kern
Absolutely.
County also has those problems. As much as we may love Kern County and our lifestyle here and our ability to get along with our neighbors and so on, but there are people here who are also suffering in this thing, this human trafficking thing, and we need to open our eyes and look at that and do something about it. Was I
Absolutely.
anywhere close when I suggested that a lot of times we see it, we know it's out there, but we don't know what to do, and maybe we feel like, well, that's not my job.
Absolutely. I think people, they may not recognize what they're seeing. They might have become so numb to it, right? We don't want to see it because it's a really awful reality. Let's be honest. Some days, I'll be honest with you, I wish I could go back 10 years ago and not know all of the stuff that I know now because it's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful to
It's hard to
know
go to sleep at night with
that
that in
10,
your head.
11, and 12-year-old girls and boys are being exploited and victimized.
Yeah.
It's awful.
And that's the other thing I wanted to ask you to confirm or tell me I'm off my rocker, because I did say something about the fact that it's not just women.
Absolutely.
It is children. It's not just females. It
Absolutely.
is males as well.
Yeah, that's one of the myths that we have to dispel oftentimes because your image automatically is this girl, but it can be boys. We've worked with boys the entire time our unit's been around. I think we really have to get over thinking it's just females because we do a huge disservice to males because they're not identified, they're not given help. People give them this, they have the idea that they can't be a victim, they need to be strong. All of these really, really false perceptions that then adds to their trauma.
Right. And
And
we
the
add to
difficulty.
that belief in them.
Absolutely.
And we add to their ability to just kind of back away from it and say, no, I couldn't have been a victim. I'm a guy. By supporting that thought, by believing that ourselves. So we need to get over that.
Absolutely.
So, well, I know there are some events coming up. I don't even know where to start because there's so much. But I know there's some events coming up, so let's keep that in the back of our minds. Absolutely. Because I want to get there and I want to talk about those things so people can attend. Mm-hmm. And for you folks at home who are listening, I want you to get something to write on, because you're going to want to make a note of those times, dates, places, and so on, so you can go to the various events that are happening that will continue what we're trying to do right here, right now, is to getting the word out and telling you what it is you can do, if anything. I would like to maybe paint a picture of a human trafficker, maybe, or not a trafficker, but a person who is trafficked, because I think that's what we're going to see. We're not going to see the guy who's in charge of this, who's doing it right away. What we will see is the symptom of it. We'll walk down Union Avenue or wherever this is going on, and we'll see that woman on the corner, and we'll know why she's there. But I guess maybe if you could kind of tell us, what does all that look like?
Oh, man, that's such a hard question, because there's so many different factors that lend to vulnerability. Yeah. It's not any one cookie cutter approach. And that's what we also have to get away from. Like, it's going to look this way every time, because you're going to miss it 9 times out of 10, right? There's a lot of things that we know add to someone's vulnerability to possibly being trafficked. But the honesty is, any child could become a victim, especially with the internet and with social media. But we absolutely know that a child who has a sexual abuse history is 4 times more likely to become a victim of trafficking or exploitation. We know that kids who are in foster care or have dealt with social workers are between 68 and 86% more likely to end up being victimized in this way. Children who have had some interaction with law enforcement or the juvenile justice system. And the other big piece is runaway or homeless youth. Mm-hmm. If they're out there on the street, 1 in 3 will be recruited by a pimp within 72 hours. So no matter the reason that they've run away from home, no matter the reason why they're homeless, if they are out there, they are extremely vulnerable to being trafficked. So those are some of the biggest symptoms or reasons why they might be vulnerable to being trafficked.
Yeah. When I was first in California as a young naval officer back in the 60s, there were the hippies running around. And later I was to find that a lot of these were 15, 16-year-old kids that had run away from some Mideastern town, Midwestern town. And they got here, didn't know anybody, had no survival skills or system, and they would be scooped up by these people. So even as far back as that, this was going on. Mm-hmm. And they were kids. They were most definitely kids. They were not grown-up adults, and they were not all female either. And
right, there's similar movements even in present day large cities where males that flock to the cities for whatever reason. Back then it was the hippies. I mean, now you can throw different facets on why they go to these major cities, but a lot of males are involved in survival sex in order to live out there, finding older, established males that are going to pay for their living, or depending on the level of living, it could be just to have cash in their pocket on the streets. Mm-hmm. If they maybe have a substance abuse issue, they're going to use that money to support that habit. So what you saw in the 60s, ironically, still occurs.
It's still going on.
Later, it's just vice finds its ways and people do, of exploiting other people for money.
We're going to take a quick break, do a commercial, and we'll come back in a moment and continue our conversation. We're talking about human trafficking right here in Kern County, right here in Bakersfield. And we're trying to bring some awareness, put a face on it, and, perhaps get your involvement in doing what you can, reporting what you see to the proper authorities. We're going to let you know who those people are, how to reach them, how to make these kinds of reports, how to keep yourself safe while you're doing it. So hang in there. My name's Tony. We'll be right back. We are back again. I'm Tony Lee, and we have a couple of wonderful people in here. And I'm saying wonderful. I'm not, just blowing smoke. These people put their lives on the line by using their lives, using the time that they have. Because to me, that's the most expensive thing there is in the world is your time. You know, if you gave me your car, you can go out and get another car. But you give me your time, you're not going to be able to get that back. And you have spent years of your lives trying to help mitigate this problem. So I'm very grateful to you for that, because who knows, it could be my daughter, my granddaughter, my cousin, my niece, even my next door neighbor. But I mean, it could be somebody I know, somebody I'm close to, who could get caught up in this thing that we call human trafficking. And that's the message I'd like to get to the people out there. That's why we need to get involved and do what we can, because we never know who the next victim or the current victim may be. Because I'm guessing from what you were starting to say when I interrupted you earlier, you know, these people come out there, they're trying to look for help or whatever, but instead of help, they find this cretin who does these things to them, who puts them into this system that they don't know how to get out of. And that could be your granddaughter, it could be your niece, it could be your neighbor, it could be somebody you know, the child of someone you know, the mother of someone you know. And, you know, what do we do about that? Where do we start when it comes to trying to get awareness to people?
Where do we start? That's a tough question. You keep asking me tough questions, Tony. I think awareness is one of the key places to start, both for, you know, the adults who have children around them in their life, but also the more we can get in with youth and help them see what could possibly happen around them. That's also very important, and that's something we've been trying more and more to do. And you know, my kids hear about this stuff all the time because of my job, but many of our kids don't realize social media and the internet have destroyed our children in so many ways. I mean, what I often will say about like technology is both what our children now have access to, which is so detrimental, but also who has access to our children. So detrimental and so high risk, and kids don't realize it. And so many parents, unfortunately, speaking as a parent of 9 children, so many parents just don't know perhaps the dangers, and they don't, you know, they give their kids privacy and they don't look at their phones. To me, that's really dangerous, because what your kid might be accessing or who might be accessing your child, and your kid thinks they're just another, you know, kid next door or whatever, and yet they're actually an adult. It can be as easy as a girl posting a picture on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever the kids are on, and someone says, "Hey, you're so pretty." And that little girl who's needed to hear those words so much is hooked. And it goes from there. And it's honestly that easy. And it could be any little girl or little boy that we know. Because so many of them need to hear those words or you know, vulnerable in some kind of way. It happens all the time. In the bedroom, in a home where there's parents even there. And parents just don't even realize it.
Is this something that has gotten worse as a result of the internet?
So there's been a lot of speculation about that, but what we know is in 2020, when, you know, that's the year nobody wants to talk about, right? The year that everything changed. And of course, kids were pretty much online 24/7 due to necessity. NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, had 22.7 million reports of cyber sexual exploitation of children.
And now I just heard recently that the Facebook, the Meta, I guess is the company now that they call themselves, and there are 2 or 3, Google, Meta, Instagram, and a few others, are actually being sued now by, I'm not sure what group, but they're being sued by some group because the group is saying essentially they have not done enough to protect our children from using their systems to get themselves in trouble like this. And I didn't know if you'd heard about that, because that's very new. That was something I just read yesterday. But for you guys out there who, you know, don't scour the internet looking for news like I have to, I just want to let you know that is happening. So there is there are some people out there trying to find some accountability for the people that knowingly or otherwise are really helping that system of human trafficking have a home, have a way to, you know, get out there and start doing what it does. Now, here in Bakersfield, and we're talking about some of the people walking up and down Union Avenue, but that's not the only kind of situation.
Correct. That's what you only see.
Yeah.
So if I didn't mention earlier, I'm also a law enforcement officer over 20 years. I was the first human trafficking detective in Kern County, and I used to work that area and had zero clue to what was really going on. I only saw what I saw on the surface. And I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed as a professional when I started doing this work, and I was guilty. I had a lot of guilt because I thought of all those girls that I spoke to and all those other victims that I didn't realize what was going on and how many slipped through my fingers that we could have helped and led them to there's some survivorship and get them to the right people. But the KCAHT didn't exist. The DHS didn't have a CSEC unit at the time specialized. There was many people in both entities within law enforcement and DHS and government and out in the area doing the work, but no one was listening. There was no support. And, understanding exactly what was going on, you realized, just like anything, how the underbelly of what we have in Bakersfield, what it really looked like. And as you spoke to survivors and heard their stories, then you really got a grasp of how bad the problem was, and then how important it was that DHS and CPS were involved, because the prevention aspect of human trafficking is so important. We can prevent this, but it has to start at a young age, because traffickers, they're good at detecting those vulnerabilities. So I draw a lot of parallels to domestic violence. The same way that an abuser finds the vulnerable person that will continue to put up with all the stuff that they do, that's when they know they have the perfect victim. So a lot of people will get confused that it's done by force all the time, because that's what was been portrayed in the movies. And then that does happen. But people stand up to that. What I've seen a little bit more, it's more where these traffickers try to rely on finesse and coercion. And sometimes the coercion is uses of force on family members or a child that they may have. So, and then other times it's, and a lot of times it's where they believe they're in a relationship and they're just contributing to the relationship and that family dynamic. And Dr. Look can talk more about that, but that is what is seen. And so when you see the reasons or you hear survivors in their stories, and again, multifaceted in what happens and how it comes out, but the end result and the end goal is the same for the trafficker, and that's money.
What can we see? What do we look for? Because again, I guess maybe that's where it'll start in terms of, let's say, me being aware that somebody on my block where I live or where I work or whatever could be a victim. What do we see other than the 30-year-old woman who's standing on a street corner? What do we see when we see kids who are caught like this? What does that look like?
Well, it can look a lot of ways. That I've had a lot of schools call me after I've done trainings that they see a child who's dressing differently and very provocatively, who's falling asleep in class because they're out all night. We have kids who are, again, runaways. Maybe they're starting to have some tattooing, which is what we call branding. Those are some of the signs. If they're, a 14-year-old girl who's in a relationship, has a boyfriend who's in his 30s, this should be a concern, right? So there's a lot of different things that you can pick up on that are red flags. You're not usually going to be able to see everything in one kid and be like, okay, that's a classic victim, right? It's little things that you pick up on. And if you start to see those little things and have any suspicions, that's when you should call CPS 631-6011. I'll just throw it out there. And the wonderful thing now is if you call in and say, I have a concern that this kid is being exploited or trafficked, I'm seeing this, this, and this, those are flagged immediately to come to my unit. And my workers are specially trained. They talk with kids in a really, really great, non-judgmental way and are oftentimes able to get kiddos who can disclose what's going on, and we can help try to get them some help. There are times that they're not ready to receive that help and they end up returning to their trafficker and the victimization that is undergoing, but they have now learned a safe person so that if and when they're ready for that help, they at least know who they can turn to or maybe where some help is.
Is this something that people are willing to do. Because I'm thinking, this could be somebody's daughter.
Absolutely.
I mean, so it's happening in your own home. It's not down the street or next door. It's right there in your bedroom, where your child is back there on the internet talking to somebody, that 30-year-old guy, and the child is 13, 14, 12, and they're talking to this person. So we may see this right under our own very noses and right under our own roofs. Is that?
Absolutely. We've dealt with many parents who unfortunately didn't see it until it was too late, right? Yeah. And so it's very difficult once they've kind of entered into this life, once that psychological hold has been put into place by their trafficker, it's really hard to get them out of it, unfortunately. And so then we have a parent who's like, I'm doing everything I can, but it's almost too late at that point. Like, we need to see it ahead of that, right?
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. If you start seeing any of those signs, we have many parents who are well-intentioned and do everything that they can. We have some really great services that we can link with, and some survivor advocates, lived experience experts. We have more and more that Kern County, we've really, really been able to do quite a bit here. And I'm so proud of our county for the efforts that we've made and the progress that we've made. But until somebody steps out and says we need help, we don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to allude to in the very beginning, is that there's no way that law enforcement or CPS or anybody else would know what's going on, because they can't be everywhere. So they're not standing right there when this happens. And, of course, the trafficker isn't going to do anything when he sees a uniform and a badge.
Correct.
So, the only people that are going to see this are the ones that, as far as the trafficker is concerned, is just another Joe walking down the street or whatever. But if you see that, that's the time that you can alert the authorities by calling that number. And did you write that down, folks? 631-6011. And we're going to say that again. We're going to make sure people get that number. And if there are websites or any other method out there where they can contact people, let folks know, and where they can learn what to do, what to look for. Because, again, I am convinced that that little girl, that little boy, they're connected to a good adult somewhere who just doesn't know what's going on. But if that good adult notices the signs, now we've got some action possible here. So we got to get that information out there. When it comes to the kinds of things that these children may be doing on the internet, they're unaware. They don't know. They, like you said, they think this is another 14-year-old kid down the street or whatever. It's really some 40-year-old man sitting in a seedy hotel room that's trying to talk them into doing something that they really shouldn't be doing. What should the parent be doing to figure out what's going on in the child's bedroom on that computer?
That can be a difficult question as a parent, right? And like where you draw those boundaries. But, for me and my kids, like I said, I have 9 kids, 7 at home, and we have parental controls on phones. We know every app that our kids have on their phone, because there's a lot of apps that might look innocuous and just fine. But really, all they're there for is to set up dates or to have bisects from someone. And parents need to realize some of those apps, being present with your kids and just asking questions. And who are you talking to? And the rule in our house, and my kids will snitch on each other, it's kind of funny, even on video games, you only talk to people that you know in real life.
Wait, hang on just a second, because I'm realizing that we are running out of time, but we'll be right back. Hang on, folks.
I think that's the hard part.
And we're back again. Dustin Contreras, he is the co-director of the Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and Dr. Angela Look, the supervisor of Child Protective Services over the CSEC unit. These are the people who are here with us this morning, and they are the ones who know exactly what you need to know so that we can try to get a rope around this whole thing and try to find those folks that are responsible for it and give them what they deserve. And I'm not going to mention what that is, because what I'd like to give them may not be legal. But I mean, there are some legal processes that once they are arrested and put into the system, some serious prison time. I don't know. Whatever the law says, I guess I'll go with that. Whatever the law says, that's what we'll do. I imagine there are people like me, we're from Texas, and we tend to herd cattle a different kind of way. So if we had them for 10 minutes, we would probably not do the right thing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go there. What I want to do is I want to get people to do the right thing, which is to call that number. And I'm going to give it to you again right now, 661-631-6011. It just gets me mad. I'm sorry.
Oh, believe me, I get mad pretty much on a daily basis at work.
I bet. I don't know how you do it. And, for grown men, I don't know. It's kind of tough in that, it'll bring some tears out of you. And we tend to hide that. We don't want people to see because it makes me feel like I'm weak if I'm going to be starting to go sniffle over here. So, that's when we want to put our fists together and go out there and get these guys and do some stuff to see that this comes to an end. But I have to say I know that's not the way to do that. We need to do this the correct way, and the correct way is see something, make that phone call, 661-631-6011. That's the Department of Human Services, Child Protective Services.
Antonio, let me give you another number too. This is a national human trafficking hotline, which is 1-888-373-7888. That's 1-888-373-7888. And that's the national human trafficking hotline. That goes to all of our partners, including the Department of Human Services. So if it doesn't involve a child, it goes to the right people. And the KCAHT's the regional representatives for the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So we vet everyone that gets that information, ensure that it goes to the right people that are doing the right type of anti-human trafficking work. And you brought it up. If you think about it from a military standpoint, you know what your job is. You may learn other people's job, but you know what your job is, and you stay in your lane. Now, you may work in the airfield and then, let's say, Navy aviation, but you're not a pilot. And you're not going to try to be a pilot. And we try to think of human trafficking work that way. You need the proper training. You need to know what you're looking for so you don't misidentify anything, or you take action that maybe wasn't the right thing to do at the time and potentially put the victim at more risk. So when it comes to, we all feel like we want to kick the door in and do this rescue and saving, and what that creates is a savior complex within the human trafficking world. And sometimes that, when people first get involved in this work, they want to help so much and have that idea of that. And that sometimes is portrayed in movies a lot. That's Hollywood kind of sensationalizing what the work is. But the reality is the work is being done like right now, what we're doing. This is kind of the bare bones part of the work, the awareness, but then boots on the ground like Angela's unit. I mean, they're working tireless, our law enforcement behind the scenes. But again, we don't exploit those stories. So it is going on, but we're not putting it out there.
But do we need to? I mean, so people know that it's going on.
We do, and it's a fine balance because you're at, these victims that are becoming survivors eventually need to get back to their regular lives. And if we're constantly telling their story and they're constantly telling their story, that's not getting back to a regular life. And we have to keep that in mind. As much as we want to bring the awareness, it just, having a survivor tell their story is impactful. It is, but at what cost? So it's a fine balance to put that out there, to portray that, to tell those stories, because people do want to hear it from the actual person, and it is impactful. But we don't want to broadcast it too much, and we ought to, the KCAHT, everyone here, we've taken steps to prevent that. When we have survivors that want to tell their story, it's up to them. It's up to the time that they want to do it. We don't want them to feel compelled to do it. And we look at other entities that maybe do that, and we have to be wary of them and vet them. And that's where the process comes in of who's on the hotline. So when we do tell people to get in this work, find the area that you want to go. Come to KCAHT, contact DHS, contact the district attorney's office task force, figure out where you can help and what your what's in your wheelhouse and how you can help these victims, because that's what we're all here for. Mm-hmm. We have faith-based organizations that help us. You can be good at fundraising. You could be good at making phone calls, doing research for us, data crunching, the numbers. There's so many things that can happen, but we need, if you want to help out, come to KCAHT, ask if you have an organization that you're involved in, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a fraternal organization, and you need one of us to come out and speak. If you're a professional organization, you need training where you think maybe human trafficking is happening. If you're a school organization, I recently spoke at a school outside of Bakersfield that had no idea that they were having trafficking. I pulled up one of the apps and showed how some of their small hotels had trafficking going on in them. So it can be done in real time, but you have to have your eyes open to it, and you have to scratch the surface and see it for you to believe that it's actually happening. So that's why we're here for the entire county, because in Bakersfield, that's where we see the bigger problem. But we have the outskirts that's happening. You have Delano, second biggest city in Kern County, but because they're so close to the border, we don't see the things happening. About 5 or 6 years ago, one of the biggest human trafficking rings happened in Tulare County. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the traffickers didn't stop at the county line. Yeah. They didn't say, well, we're not going to go over to Delano and recruit anybody. We're going to stop right there. It didn't happen. So when something like that can happen on a national level, that should open your eyes to how exploitive it can be and how it can happen underneath an entire county and city and cops. But thank God someone said something and opened up that ring that was going on, and it included children. It included children and adults. So it got national attention, but then dies down, with the news cycle. So that's normal. Mm-hmm. But again, thank you for having us here, because this is exactly why we need to be here, and so we can keep those stories going and keep the awareness going when it comes to human trafficking.
And this is an open door here. So whenever you have information that you want the public to have, I hope to get an email or a text or something, or have you come back and ring the bell and come on in here.
Absolutely.
So that we can continue doing it and at your schedule, at the time when you feel it's necessary. Because again, like you said, there are air traffic controllers, there are pilots, there are linemen that fuel the airplanes that are not pilots, and we don't want them climbing into a Phantom F4 and trying to take off here. So you tell us what we need to do and when we need to do it. And we're standing here ready to do that, to be our part of the system that helps to find a way to solve this problem.
Well, it can even come down to you have, an open room in your home, and you're willing to maybe take a youth in who's been exploited and who's in foster care. That's one way you can help. What if you're a business owner and you might be able to provide jobs for somebody who's trying to get out of the life? There's so many different ways that you can get involved in this if you have a heart and a passion for it and see the problem and want to help. And like Dustin said, come to KCAHT and figure out where that piece is for you. We all have a part to play.
Yeah. Are there other numbers or, anything you mentioned, a couple of things, and I can't recall exactly what it was, but something that suggested to me there might be another phone number that you'd want to give out.
Oh, yeah. Well, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, that one is 24/7, 7 days a week, just like the CPS hotline. But in order of time, like if you believe it's a child, for sure call the CPS hotline or call the National Human Trafficking. It doesn't matter, or dial 911. Yeah. If you see something, say something. No one is going to chastise you for erring on the side of caution when it comes to a child or a victim. Time is of the essence. Mm-hmm. These people, by definition, are being held against their will. The crime that is being committed is they're being held against their will with the intent to commit some type of sex act or labor act, right, as by the law. So when someone's being held against their will, they can be kidnapped, they can be moved. Mm-hmm. Human trafficking is transitory, so time is of the essence. So if it's something where maybe something stationary, then that's different. But time is of the essence when it comes to these investigations, so we always push that out. They can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. They can go to the polarisproject.org. That is where a lot of the training and the models set for how we frame human trafficking with any organization, and they can lead you to all the data and numbers. They kind of went down in their numbers only because of COVID. And so we, like Angela said, COVID pushed a lot of things into a different dynamic for those vulnerable people, and the data collection and portion is trying to bounce back and get numbers, and we have global numbers of what that happens. So just like you need like a natural disaster or a war zone, you get people displaced out of their jobs. Maybe the job that they were going to no longer exists because it was blown up by a missile from Russia. What are those people going to do now to survive? Who is going to exploit them to survive? So it could be sex or in the labor field. If you take that same metaphor from a world standpoint and bring that to Kern County, we have homeless issues, we have narcotics issues. Those same people that become vulnerable, and children that become vulnerable, because if those parents that having those narcotics issues, those job issues, what happens to the child at that point? Where does the child get left in this? So you can see the cycle as it creates itself, but people need to look at from a world perspective, but also see the trees. Like, let's see the forest and the trees. Let's see both at the same time, because the same parallels you can draw through history and in the world in real time happen here in Kern County at a smaller level.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry,
just last year alone. So I keep data for the children in Kern County. We investigated 104 children last year alone in Kern County. But what we have to remember with data is it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
So many don't get reported. So many are never seen. So many don't see that they're a victim. So we hear 104 kids, which I'm sorry, that's a lot of kids in Kern County. But we have to realize there's 10 times as many or more that we haven't seen. That's how big the problem is here. It's a global, it's a national, it's a county problem. It's happening here. The kid next door, 104 at least last year, and it's already starting, of course, this year too. So it's here.
Yeah.
We need to know that, but always pay attention with data. In this problem, it's never going to be a full picture because we just don't see all the victims because they're never reported.
Right. We've got to take another break, and then we'll come back with our shortest and final segment and try to give you a hint of some of the events going on that are coming up that you can attend, where you can learn more, meet more people, and maybe figure out if there's a volunteer option for you in there as well. Hang on. My name is Tony Lee, and we'll be right back.
I know.
That's what
I know. Everything else
Okay, that's funny.
do
Got
you have
it.
up? Okay.
Yes. That is so funny. Yeah, I'm excited. Now my son just ended up getting a game on the same night. I'm like, I've got to miss their game. I never miss games.
Yeah, I'm trying to think these are the ones because this would be after it airs.
Yes, and I can't remember all the different.
Yeah, there's one that's on the 10th. I was looking at that, and I couldn't get us in here quickly enough.
That's fine.
And I think the 17th.
Yeah, the 17th is our Wake
That's
Up
a good
movie.
one. Yeah.
That one will be really good.
That's
I don't
it.
remember all the different.
Trying to think what's first. So start with the 17th. Yeah.
This
And then
is
this
like
is
the-
right after.
Okay, there was another one. Do you have another one? Panera. Do you have Panera's?
I don't. They have a Condor game this weekend.
I don't remember what date it was. She did so many different restaurants, and I never hardly eat out.
As soon as you find that, we'll jump back in there. And we're only going to have about 3 more minutes,
Gotcha.
unfortunately, but definitely want to mention some of the events.
Of course, I can't find this stupid email. Sometimes on my phone, I can't find them all. It's
Isn't that weird?
I think they're all on our website for DHS. So there's
Okay.
that.
Okay, well, we can tell them that.
These are the big ones,
Okay.
but there are a couple other fundraisers they can look for. I know there's one for Panera.
Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. We're back again, and again, my name is Tony Lee, and we have Dustin Contreras. He is the co-director of the Kern Coalition Against Human Trafficking. Dr. Angela Look is here. She's the supervisor of Child Protective Services over the CSEC unit. And we have given you a couple of things which I want to give you again, and that's the phone number. We have the CPS number. We have the nationwide hotline. The Department of Human Services website is a place you can go. And one of those numbers is 661-631-6011, or the national hotline number 1-888-373-7888. And what else should we tell them so that they'll have a contact, a way to reach out if they want to?
Well, those are the best ways for contact, I would say. Anything that gets called in to the 631-6011 or the national hotline that's regarding children will come to my unit specifically. But I think we really wanted to make sure that the community is aware of all of the events that's happening in January as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. Very excited that next week we have been able to procure the movie called Wake Up, a fantastic movie about human trafficking, but in a movie format. Very, very good. Well done, helped by a renowned survivor, Rachel Thomas. It'll be at the Fox Theater next Tuesday on the 17th from 6 to 8:30. The movie will be shown. We'll have some resources out there, some merchandise out there. It's free to the community, and I would just ask anybody can come. And I would say probably teenager and up. My teenage daughters went with me to see it last year. I would love to see a bunch of teenagers who can really become aware themselves of what is happening and help themselves and their friends, right? This is how we need to start it. So everyone, please come next week to the Fox to see Wake Up.
And Dustin, we've got just another minute or two, but I want to make sure that whatever things you feel are important that we didn't get to, that you can at least mention them.
Yeah, we have a BJ's fundraiser on the 18th. We also have a human trafficking presentation on the 19th. If they go to DHS, they can find all that. And the Human Trafficking Task Force with the DA's office also has an anti-trafficking volleyball tournament on January 21st. And we also and that's at 6558 Meany Avenue. They can go to the DA Task Force and look up that information. We also have Light Up the Night, which is Wednesday, January 25th at 6 p.m. And that's at the Garden. And that's to talk about our trafficking victims and survivors. We also have
a 5K on the 28th at Riverwalk. And there is a link, I believe, on our website to be able to sign up to run at that event, which I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, that's a race against human trafficking. Speaking to people, they already have close to 150 runners on a pre-registration. Registration is still open, and that's a lot. And so that's going to be a big event. So everyone get out there and run. And we have with the Bakersfield Republican Women Federated, they're going to be putting on something at the Stockdale Country Club on February 7th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. If they can go to their website at bakersfieldrwf.org in events, and they can see what's coming out. And also, we want just the county to know in March to look for Canyon Hills Ministry, Women's Ministry, puts on a giant fundraiser, and they donate a lot of that money to KCAHT and to international anti-human trafficking efforts, and keep that money here in county that specifically goes to help out survivors and victims of human trafficking. So a lot going on. The district attorney's human trafficking task force has taken the horse by the lead, and they are gearing up and doing good things in the year that they've been around.
Great. I am very, very honored to have you guys here. And again, like I said earlier, the door's open. So anytime we here at this station can be of any help in getting information out, let us know. And we'll be sure to get that out there for you. Public service announcements or whatever it takes, radio shows, whatever it takes, we're willing to do here.
Absolutely. And the big thing is, whatever people can do in their professional and their personal lives, be an unsung hero. Make that phone call. If you see something, say something. It's going to be that type of person that opens that door and metaphorically kicks in a door to help someone and get them out of the situation that they're in. So be vigilant, call law enforcement, call 911, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, call the CPS hotline if you see something.
Yeah. Thank you again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. And I want to thank everybody out there listening to, and throw my little vote in for you to, do exactly what Dustin said and what Dr. Angela says. If you see something, say something. And we'll see you next week.